Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So this is kind of a clusterfuck from the get-go since I'm trying to do a space along with live, this, that, and the other. So if you're in the Twitter space, X space, whatever the hell we call it, first of all, hopefully you can hear me. But second of all, also, I have my alt in there on my phone trying to approve people, not approve people. But the idea behind this is I wanted to, yeah, thanks, Merc. It's about right. The idea behind this is I do my live podcasts, whatever. I do it live on X, but I don't think you can have the video open as you and listen at the same time, or you can't close the video, so you can't close the app or close your phone. So I think you have to have the app open the whole time, which is kind of a hassle. Also, I wanted to, I don't know how this is really going to work out. Hands wise, like I can't really see anything hands wise. Seth, I do see you in there that you want to speak, which is great. I'm going to open it up when I'm done with this, kind of like a Q&A thing. So probably in about an hour, if you want to stick around, that'd be awesome. I'd definitely approve you, and we'll go from there. Um, but that being said, the topic today is Israel and Rhodesia, and these countries seemingly have zero in common, being that one doesn't exist anymore and one is currently at war. It's war. No matter what Tony Aguilar says, there is a shooting war going on. I don't really want to get into the minutia of Israel Gaza necessarily, Israel Iran, all of the things that are happening currently. I want to talk more kind of philosophically about some of the parallels between what was Rhodesia, which is now called Zimbabwe, which I found out that a lot of folks don't know that that's a thing, um, or that, excuse me, that Rhodesia was a thing. Um, I don't want to get too much into the history of Rhodesia, one, because I'll fuck it up, but two, it's not really entirely relevant how it started, where it came from, other than I'm going to hit the cliff notes of Rhodesia. Basically, so I'll put the map up here. Rhodesia sat in south of the continent of Africa, just above South Africa. It shared a border with it, shared a border with Mozambique, Botswana, Zambia, southwest Africa, which still is now just South Africa. It was a white colony set up by the Rhodes Company, which I believe was a mining company. Again, we're going to hit the cliff notes here, so let's not take this exactly too seriously on the history of it. But they gained their independence from Great Britain, I think 1965, which basically began the Bush War. Um, the Bush War, if you're not familiar with Rhodesia or um, the war, um, there was a greater movement in Africa, the African nationalist movement, which basically was the black populations of many different countries wanting a seat at the table, to use the parlance of our time, as horrible as it is. Um, the minority white country of Rhodesia ruled by whites. There was no black representation in the government for many years. They started to bring some in gradually. This wasn't enough. And basically, what was happening is that Rhodesia is trying to hold on to its identity as a white country, as a prosperous white country. It's produced a ton of food for itself and exported. Very rich country down there. They were trying to hold on to their identity and really didn't want to give up the rule to the black population, which, by the way, came in later after the white population. So, being that they did not want to have be ruled over by an all-black government, knowing what would happen, the Rhodesian government launched the Bush War against the rebel incursions from Mozambique and Zambia, most of which were communist, in origin and communist in funding, training, what have you. Originally in the Bush War, the Zambians and the Mozambiques, I don't know what you call what the plural of Mozambique is. Mozambikians, maybe just shitholes. Basically, when the war kicks off, Mozambique is ruled by, I think it was the Dutch at the time, still a Dutch colony. We're able to keep them under firm control. So it's really Zambia and a couple of rebel groups along the border. Rhodesia is able to hold its own. Rhodesia had some of the finest soldiers on earth. They were outnumbered from the get-go. They were undersupplied, but they were very well trained. And what supplies they did have, they used to the maximum effectiveness and fought the way that they needed to fight to win, and win that they did. Now, the parallels come into this already if you have any knowledge of Israel, in that you are basically surrounded by people who don't like you. You are constantly under attack by those people, be it asymmetrical or symmetrical attack. You are, in essence, fighting for your life. Now, where I think Israel learned a lot of lessons from the Rhodesians. The Rhodesians made a lot of mistakes. So let me backtrack here. The Rhodesians, when it came to fighting, actual physical fighting, bullets flying, the Rhodesians won. And they won big. And they launched raids. And they did, I forget the exact raid of the town or village. But basically they hit a convoy that I think was from Mozambique, maybe Zambia, it doesn't matter. They hit a convoy. They took over all of the trucks, uniforms, and they went back like nothing had happened, and went right back into the base and destroyed it, killed everyone. Big, giant victory. It was something like 50 guys took out 1,500 guys. Absolute massive victory. So when it came to the bullets flying, nobody was better at it in this part, in the Bush War, than the Rhodesians. They were very good soldiers. They could train well. They had mercenaries from all over the globe. If you were around at the time, or if you found since the magazine Soldier of Fortune, the ads in the back that said you want to be a mercenary were legit. The guys on the cover that were wearing the Rhodesian brushstroke camo, which is one of the best camos ever invented, still to this day. Those guys were legit. A lot of Vietnam vets who were aimless, had nothing to do, went to Rhodesia, Americans, Europeans, French, went and fought on the Rhodesian side, and I guess made a decent living, or at least enjoyed what they were doing as their job. Pretty badass to watch, pretty badass. There is footage of it out there, and pretty badass that this tiny little country with this tiny little army was sticking it to the commies, which we can all get behind. Now, the war that they lost, and what would eventually be their undoing, is the PR war. So when they launched that raid that I talked about, where 50 guys took out 1,500, the Zambians, I believe the Zambians, anyway, the guys they took out, their buddies came in and said, look at the slaughter that they did on these innocent victims. Obviously, it's pre-internet, social media, what have you, so it's one view. And they gave that to the West, showing this slaughter of 1,500 people, soldiers, mind you, and they said that these were 1,500 civilians, refugees. This was a refugee camp, because when they took out the camp, they took out all their weapons, anything that was working. They scavenged, they took, again, the undersupplied. They had an embargo against them, so even if you wanted to supply them, you would have had to like backdoor supply all of that. South Africa still illegally supplied them. That's how they ended up with FNFALs, the FAL, if you will. They modified them a hair so they didn't look like they were South African. But anybody that has a brain knows that they got those FALs from South Africa, so good on South Africa for doing that. South Africa understanding that if Rhodesia fell, South Africa fell, which still happened. So they lost the PR war because they were all about kicking ass. They weren't about taking pictures. So it became very unfashionable for the United States. Great Britain kind of didn't like them already. Let me get this damn picture down. No, I'm going to leave up the map. Great Britain already didn't like them because they had declared their independence against them. Another L. You know, you got to whoop the British twice and then bail them out twice before they become your friends. And even then, it's kind of tentative at best. So here we are. Limey bastards really don't like taking an L. I can understand it. Anyway, so they lose the PR war. All of this kind of translates into what we've seen transpire throughout Israel as far as being at war with their neighbors. Um, the PR war they were really good at in the beginning, Israel was, when they get attacked on all sides, they're able to fight. There's a lot left in history there. If you dive into it, it's just not what it seems, what have you. So how does this apply to modern day Israel and their endeavors now? Well, you can see kind of the parallels in what Rhodesia did do and what they didn't do. The PR war has been a thing for a long, long time. Propaganda, call it what you want, newsreels. We played the PR war in World War II. We played it early in World War I, but World War II is a pretty good example of a PR war that at home you're talking about you're vilifying your enemy, you're kind of dehumanizing them. The ones about the Japanese that the United States made about the Japanese were pretty, looking back, they're kind of funny, but looking back, it's not very PC, say that. Basically, if you were to post that on Blue Sky or Blueski, whatever it's actually called, you're probably getting banned, like, instantly. I don't think you can post that on Facebook, any of the other commie platforms there. Yeah, you can probably get away with it on X, but I'm not going to do it. Anyway, I digress. So, parallels and things I think I kind of see coming here. If you're Israel, let me back up a hair. Israel was very active in Africa in the 1960s, 70s. Not so much in the 80s because basically Africa fell in the 80s and Israel had been pushed out. The operation, or Entebbe operation, Raid on Entebbe, that was kind of the last straw for Israel in Africa. I know it wasn't in Rhodesia, but that was kind of the last hurrah of good relations between the black population governments and Israel. But they were there early, trying to win support, gain allies, get food, supplies. Israel is very, very mineral poor. They don't have the things they need to wage war. They don't have, oil, things of that nature, metals. They don't have it, so they got to go find it or get it supplied. So they were in Africa, and I don't mean that like Israel was there as Mossad and they were doing things. I'm sure that there was spy operations happening in intelligence. Obviously, you're going to do that. Even when you're trying to gain allies, you're trying to gain intelligence at the same time. But they were there gaining allies, trying to gain allies, and also trying to stop the like Algerian incursions, if you will. It's kind of what spawned in Entebbe, was a hijacked Algerian flight, but trying to go at the PLO at the home base once the French left Algiers. So they're in Africa. So they probably saw, I would assume, I didn't do a deep dive in this, I would assume that the Israelis probably reached out to the Rhodesians at some point, whether it was back channel, front channel, whatever. I'm sure there was some talk that went on between them, but it didn't take boots on the ground to realize what was happening in Rhodesia. And it didn't take boots on the ground to realize what happened later in South Africa. Now, this is not to say that white people holding black people down as monoliths is a good thing. But if we're going to learn the lessons of Rhodesia, and the reason why most of you have never heard of Rhodesia and why it doesn't exist today is because of what they were unwilling to do when it came to war. You don't have to like what Israel's doing in Gaza with the Palestinians or the West Bank or Syria, Lebanon, name the country. But when you view it in the reality that was Rhodesia and what happened, it makes a lot more sense of that. If you have a population within your borders that's not a fan of yours, and you have a population right on your border that's not a fan of yours, it is in your best interest to either be friends with them, and if that's not a possibility, then you have to delete them, whatever that means. If you take the Rhodesian example, and you're basically surrounded on all sides in a much greater continental effort from Central Africa of the black populations in the African movement, African nationalist movement, which was all black, mind you. Egypt was not really part of this. So this was not like North Africa. This was Central Africa. Basically, all of the countries that became shitholes after multiple civil wars in the 80s and 90s and 2000s and now, these were the ones that allied against Rhodesia and South Africa. But Rhodesia was the first one. They were the first domino that fell. And it doesn't exist. It's gone, never to be seen again. It's now a complete shithole known as Zimbabwe, which is poor, starving, and dying. Whereas Rhodesia was very prosperous, very prominent, and very food rich. They were rich in many aspects. It would be a place that you would have vacationed if you had the money, basically. And they were safe. Their crime was low. They kept it in order. This is not a very easy subject really to talk about, but it's accurate all at the same time when you look back in history that if Rhodesia was willing to do the things, wall themselves in, take out populations within their borders that were the troublemakers, if you will, instead of sitting at the table when things are looking bleak, you've got a full embargo, you can't import, you can't export, your economy's taking a hit, you're trying to fund this war effort, you can't get weapons. Even if you could get weapons, you can't pay for them because you're basically running out of money. International aid's not coming. You don't have any allies. The only ally you have is South Africa, who has to do it under secret because they don't want to be embargoed and cut off as well. The walls are kind of closing in. Instead of going to the table with the people who wanted to destroy you, who are allied with the Soviets, and then later in the Bush War would get trained by the Soviets and were able to actually put up somewhat of a fight instead of just stand there with a rifle firing from the hip, getting destroyed by crack soldiers, the Rhodesian Light Infantry. If you just went straight to war and said to the last man, you have a chance. But as we all know, there is no talking to the communists because there's nothing above the ideology. They're coming to destroy you. They hate you for your way of life. They hate you because they vilify you for the color of your skin or your religion or both. But the ideology is the same. It's full and complete takeover. It doesn't matter to the communists what they have to say or do or point to take you out. It's all about the ideology to come in and to take you over. That's what it's all about. We've seen it in our own country. It doesn't matter what they have to say, who they have to vilify, how wrong that they are. No facts have ever convinced a communist that they were wrong. No amount of starvation has ever convinced a communist that they were wrong. It convinced them that they were doing the right thing for the greater good of communism and themselves. So the idea that the ruling government of Rhodesia, which was a democratic government, was going to negotiate with these incoming African nationalists was absurd on its face, but it made sense at the time, where if you're the prime minister and you're trying to hold on to what you have and maybe you can negotiate your way out of it, if you're Israel looking at history, you understand that this is not an option. There is no option with sitting down with, whether it's the PLO, Hamas, whatever group, sitting down with them and saying, hello, friend, let's make peace. It's just not on the table as far as they're concerned, and I can understand it. I don't have to agree with it, but I understand where it's coming from. Not every Palestinian is Hamas. I get it. Not every Palestinian is a terrorist. I get it. But every Palestinian, or every, whether it's Palestinian in Gaza, Palestinian in Jordan, Palestinian in America, they're not huge fans of Israel. You can kind of understand why, that they've walled them off, pushed them out, moved them, were given their land in 1948 to take it over. Yeah, I get it. Here's the thing. There's no live and let live here. That's the whole thing. That's what the Palestinians don't understand at this point. We can be very critical of the Israeli government and the ways they're going about things, but they're saying all of the things out loud that they weren't supposed to say out loud prior to October 7th and that attack. They're talking about removing the Palestinians. They're talking about going in and occupying Gaza. They're talking about taking it over. It's going to be their thing. They're saying it out loud. And I'm not talking about just some rando on the Twitters. I'm talking about people in the government, in the cabinet, higher ups in the Israeli government. They're saying it out loud. And it dawned on me earlier this week of the Rhodesian example. So if you're looking at it that way, everyone wants to play the Rhodesian example as black versus white. The thing about the African nationalist movement is it was outside the Rhodesian borders, and they said it was all about, well, all the black people that are within Rhodesia. Rhodesia didn't keep them there and make them stay. They were free to leave if they wanted to. They were free to come and go. Did they have voting rights? No, they did not, because why didn't they have voting rights? Well, hell, I don't know. It's the same reason you don't get the Palestinians in Gaza voting rights, because they're going to vote in something like, I don't know, Hamas. Now, you can say, and it's true, that Hamas got voted in 2005, if my memory serves me correctly, and they haven't had an election since. Fair enough. You still elected terrorists when you did it. Now, did they blatantly say what they were going to do? Who was the other side that you could have possibly voted for? I don't fucking know, but you did it. There's no live and let live with that. So if you're the Rhodesians, it's the same example just in history of, look, man, it's the same thing that the founding fathers struggled with, okay? It's the 2/3 of man to an extent. You can't, if you have a population that you believe or know would turn on you tomorrow and chop your head off, you probably don't want to give them power. That's the uncomfortable truth of everything. I don't know that the slaves in America in 1776 would have just turned and killed all of the white people. I'm sure some of that would have happened, and I'm sure a lot of that would have been justified. But the fact of the matter is, if you're going to have an actual physical country that exists, you're going to have to make some hard choices. That was one of the hard choices our founders had to make. It's a hard choice that the Rhodesians did make, and then decided that international pressure, what have you, that they felt like they had to alter this decision and let it happen, and it crushed them. It killed them, and it doesn't exist anymore. And I totally understand why Israel is doing the thing that they're doing. Not that I necessarily condone it. And we have all of these international laws and the Geneva Conventions and the thises and the thatses of all of these international norms that people want to tell me about. And it's, okay, great. What the fuck does Switzerland have to do with anything? Maybe Israel hasn't even signed the Geneva Convention. I don't know. But the Geneva Convention came out of World War II, and it's like, we have to make these rules so this never happens again. Just like we have to have this, the war to end all wars. After World War I, the Treaty of Versailles, this will never happen again. Those pesky Germans can never rebuild. How'd that work out? The other side of this is we talk about, okay, so you have the Geneva Convention. Well, is the Geneva Convention still on the table when the other side is not abiding by the same rules? I say it doesn't apply. You know, one of the things of the Geneva Convention is if you don't have a enemy in uniform, enemy combatant that's in a uniform that can be discerned from the local population, then that, as far as I can remember, that person is now to be deleted on sight without question. So there's that. Why would you play by a set of rules your enemy's not going to play by? That's what the Rhodesians did. They played by a set of rules that their enemy did not play by. Because what happened? So if Rhodesia wanted to exist, what would they have had to do? They would have had to start with the troublemakers within your borders, Then start just going down the line. And as it doesn't work or it does work, that's where your stop points are. So if you go down the line and you get rid of the troublemakers out of Rhodesia, boom, they're gone. Okay, let's say you're able to build a wall, no one can get in, hypothetically. Talking in hypotheticals here. Okay, so no new ones come in. Fuck, we still have the same problem. Now we start going down the line of what we call a troublemaker. Is it somebody who says something? Is it somebody who owns a specific firearm? Is it somebody with a communist party card in their wallet? Is it someone who knows someone? You start whittling it down. That's the whole thing. If you want to survive, that's what you would have had to do, which they would call ethnic cleansing. Ethnic cleansing doesn't involve death. Genocide involves death. Ethnic cleansing is just basically taking this group of people within this borders and then moving them outside of it. Had they ethnically cleansed their borders, they would probably still be around today. But that is illegal based on international law, which the Rhodesians were abiding by, but their enemy did not. How many Rhodesians do you think still live in Zimbabwe? There's still some. Okay, I actually met one about 20 years ago. Dude went by the name Zim. Don't remember his first actual name because it was a little not American, if you will. By the way, white guy. I mean, white guy. Not like halfsies or anything like that. Straight up white guy, named Zim. Cool as fuck. Weird accent. Weird and like good weird, not, weird. Had seen some shit. Just put it that way. But family had really seen some shit. I digress. So, again, you're abiding by rules your enemy does not abide by. Where was the international order that said, hey, Zimbabwe, you or Mozambicans and Zambians and what have yous and Botswanans, although Botswana wasn't really part of it. You can't come in and ethnically cleanse the whites, said no one ever. It's happening in South Africa right now with the Boer. We just heard about it a month ago, 2 months ago. You have Boer refugees coming to America, getting the hell out because they're being ethnically cleansed by blacks. Why is it only ethnic cleansing when the predominant race on earth, or it's not a predominant race on earth? Why is it only ethnically cleansing when the white people do it? It's not ethnic cleansing when the dark people do it. It's the same concept. It's the same thing. But we're going to hold one group of people to a standard. We're not going to hold another group of people to a standard, which is the ultimate form of racism, by the way. The soft bigotry of low expectations. Well, we can't possibly expect the new Zimbabweans to adapt to the white culture that's been there longer than them and has provided so much wealth, opulence, and prosperity. Yeah, that's not racist at all. But it's racist if I say, damn, I'll bet that Chinese guy's good at math. Somehow that makes me racist. Or that he's good at math. Who fucking knew? It's amazing to me. And maybe I'm fucking wrong here. I'm sure there's somebody out there yelling right now saying how wrong I am, things of that nature, which is fine. Fuck you too. Not really. I'm open to a discussion on it, but this whole thing of, look, war sucks. It is what it is, man. My thing with Israel and their current wars that they're in, one, I don't want to be in them. First and foremost, the United States needs to not be in this whatso-fucking-ever. That's point one. Point two is, if they want to buy a whole bunch of weapons from our weapons manufacturers and our government wants to take a little off the top, wet their beak, if you will, to put into the overall, good on you. Buy all the ICBMs or whatever the hell, rockets, bullets, bombs, buy it all. Cool. But the thing that everyone needs to kind of understand about Israel and the current war they're in. There's two wars going on. It's the same two wars that Rhodesia had going on, and they tried to win both of them, and you can't win both of them. There's the shooting war, there's the PR war. You get to pick one. Which one do you want to win? Because you can't win both, and you got to go full throttle on whichever one you pick. I think we know which one Israel picked, and it's the one that they can actually win. Okay? Winning in a war for human history meant that the other population was either under thumb or gone. And they were under thumb, under threat of being gone. Whether you go back to Genghis Khan, you go back to Alexander the Great, you go back as far back in history as we can talk about. You either got destroyed or you got in fucking line. That's how it worked. Romans the same way. We're coming. Somebody's going to win. If it's us, then we win. Or you can not fight and you can hang out, be cool, and you don't die. That's how armies were able to conquer vast swaths. You don't conquer vast swaths by trying to take out everybody and kill everyone in the village, in the city, whatever. That's not how it works. You can only do that for so long. You have to take those people you conquered, put them in your ranks, on to the next place. We're coming for that place. That means you got to treat them good. That means you got to be benevolent to them to an extent. The more benevolent you are, the better. Again, Genghis Khan will teach you that one. Or you got to destroy him. So if you're Israel, the thing everyone needs to understand here is it's going to get a lot worse before it gets a lot better. And a lot worse means that the Palestinians, the Gazans, whatever you want to call them, you're fucking gone. I don't like it. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. The thing is, those two sides are not going to be able to live together in peace and harmony. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We need to not get sucked into it as the United States as far as shooting war and things of that. We've already gotten involved in Iran. That was a no-no. That was a mistake. It was very limited. In and out. We call that the Pete Hegseth strategy. In and out, in and out, in and out. We can't get sucked into this. But if you think that there's any sort of semblance of a greater Israel with peace and harmony amongst the Palestinians, what have you, it ain't happening. They're expanding their borders. They're making greater Israel. Suck it up, Buttercup. It's happening, okay? We don't have to like it. You don't have to underwrite it. You just have to fucking accept it. Because that's what's happening. Because if Israel wants to survive, if they want their right to exist, you only have the right to what you're willing to fight and die for. And Israel apparently is willing to fight and die for a greater Israel and a more prosperous Israel. By greater Israel, I mean bigger borders. Okay? They're going to take over Gaza. They're going to take over the West Bank. They're going to keep the Golan Heights and Syria. They're probably going to take back at some point that part of... they probably won't take over that part of Egypt. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's a piece of shit. That's why they gave it back anyway. They're going to take over parts of Lebanon. It's going to happen. They're going to take it. They're going to control it. And Jordan is sitting there with not looking too good. Let's put it that way. Iran right now is a little weakened, a little reeling. So they're able to kind of do it. Apparently Hezbollah is just decimated in Lebanon. But Hezbollah is not gone. Allegedly, Hezbollah is a worldwide organization which has some ties in South America. Don't know about that. It's also not what the hell I'm talking about today. So, the greater point here is that Israel is probably going to win. I don't see how they don't win. They have the one thing that the Rhodesians didn't have, besides the willingness to fight, is they still have allies and international support. That was another thing I wanted to talk about too, is Israel in the past, I don't know, 2 or 3 decades has intertwined its economy with other economies of the Western nations, Europe, United States. They've also intertwined politics, whether you like it or not, the APACs of the world, the ADL, many different entities that exist in the United States and probably in other forms and fashions exist in European countries, the EU. They've they're closely tied into politics and economics, more so in politics, it seems. They're very tied in. So their supply is still high. Their economy is still fine. Rhodesia was on its own basically from the get go. They were sitting duck. It wasn't if, it was when. And they were unwilling to do the thing that needed to be done for their existence. I know it sounds horrible when I say they're unwilling to do the thing that needed to be done. It's war. Bullets are flying. People are dying. That's how it works. Should they be starving the Palestinian people? Are they starving the Palestinian people? I don't know. I hear that they are. I hear the other side says they're not. I don't know what the hell to think. And that brings me to our guy, Tony Aguilar, who went on Tucker again today, or sometime. The episode came out today, which I listened to again. I don't know what the hell to think about Tony Aguilar. I know that Green Beret Nap Time did a whole tweet thread about the guy, and there's some domestic violence in there. There's some record disputes. I didn't really go through it too much or take too many notes. I'm sure everything he says is mostly factual. I'll be fair to everyone involved here. I don't know. One of the things that is curious to me is that the people coming after Tony Aguilar are engaging in character assassination, and they're not really taking on what he's saying, other than he's a liar. Okay, fair enough. He might be a liar, but could you tell me what and how he's lying and what the truth is? That would be, maybe start fucking there. That would be cool. There's also the other part of, now he kind of is engaged in character assassination to an extent, or just not character assassination. He's just like, you don't matter because you're not. One of the things he said about Green Beret Nap Time is I'm not going to pay attention to that guy. He's anonymous. He's hiding behind his keyboard. It's well, what is he supposed to do? Come find you, beat the shit out of you? I don't really understand that line of thinking. So that's some retardation. But also when the critics of Aguilar come out and say, well, he's a Hamas sympathizer, a Hamas supporter. It's is he a Nazi too? Those things hold no weight anymore. He may be lying. That doesn't make him a Hamas sympathizer supporter. That's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But the one thing on this latest episode with Tucker Carlson that Aguilar talked about, is he talked about the ammunition that they were given. First of all, he talked about the rifle he was given. He said it was a fully automatic. He then started referring to it as a machine gun. I'm sure he got a fully automatic, M4 style rifle. But he started talking about how it was made by the Israelis. It was given to him by the Israelis. It was made by the Israelis by a company called IWI. And he's like, I've never even heard of that. And I think even Tucker was like, I've never heard of that either. It's guys, they make the fucking Desert Eagle. Whether you don't know, you do know. IWI has been around for, I think they changed their name at some point, maybe to come to be more international, but it was IMI, Israel Military Industry, which I think was the original. That was their state arsenal. I think when they went to more of a privatized arsenal weapons maker, that's when they were Israeli Weapons Industries, so IWI. It's still the same company, but they're the people behind. They mass produced the Uzi, the mini Uzi, the Desert Eagle, the Baby Eagle, and now they have a AR that you can buy that has some high-end stuff on it. Cold hammer forged barrels, nice triggers. I think it's actually it might be an FN barrel that they put on it, but pretty legit. It's like $800 or $900. Great price. Sounds like a great rifle. But neither of them ever heard of IW. I don't know why that mattered. There's also that this was manufactured in Israel. Okay. So they didn't buy it from us. Great. But then they started talking about the ammunition. This is, as Mr. Aguilar said, this is M855 armor, green-tipped armor-piercing rounds. Yeah, it's 62 grains, which is the standardized grain for military for an M4. How do you not know that? Well, I don't know why they need an armor-piercing. These are really to take out civilians. Are civilians wearing armor? Yes, I understand what I just said sounds retarded. Like, well, if they're not wearing armor, why would they need it? Because they're not there just to shoot civilians. They're not there to shoot civilians, as far as I can know. That might change. But vehicle-borne IEDs, guy wearing a vest, IED on it, clack one off. Vehicle-borne anything. You probably want a M855 penetrator. And you definitely want a 62 grain bullet out of a 14.5-inch barrel. If it's truly an M4, like you said, you're going to want a 62 grain bullet. You're going to want that thing humming. And you're going to want some hit when it lands. 55 grain, decent. It's okay. It's more of a target round. Most of us know that. Go to 77 to 75 grain. Twist rate, barrel length really starts to come into play. Reach out and touch isn't there. We all know, anybody's been around ARs for any amount of time, that a 62 grain bullet's kind of the sweet spot there. Whether it's a 1-8, 1-7 twist, that's really your sweet spot. It's going to work out of a 20-inch, 24-inch. It's going to work out of a 10, 11.5. It's going to work great out of a 14.5. It works great out of a 14.5. That's what it's there for. That's the standardized weight grain. As far as I know, that 62 grains is a standardization for the 14.5-inch M4 barrel. It being a green tip penetrator, I would think a lieutenant colonel in the special forces would understand that body armor is kind of a standardized thing in combat anymore, and vehicle-borne IEDs in attacks are a thing. Same with motorcycles. You probably want something that can take out an engine block, go through an engine block, go through a window, still carry some weight through it, and take out the target. You don't want to be plunking with 55 grains just because they're real speedy boys and they're just disintegrating and not actually taking them out. The penetrator is so it carries through the object you're fucking shooting at, so the guy behind the object still gets hit by an actual bullet that's still intact, not just fragmented to death because you fired 30 rounds and finally enough fragments got in his face to take him out, but he still got close enough to clack it off. So there's that part, Aguilar. I've convinced myself that Tony Aguilar is just a fucking retard. I don't know. That right there was like the total giveaway. And I understand that a lot of guys in the military really don't care about guns. It's just another tool. They're not really into it. And that would have been fine if he just said they gave us some bullets. They were green tip. Allegedly, those are penetrators. Don't really understand that. That's what we were issued. I had seen them over in Iraq and Afghanistan, because you have. It's just what they gave us, and it works. And, it's nothing out of the ordinary, because it's not. He just literally doesn't understand the weapons platform and the weapons system at all. Why I understand it better than him, I don't know. He's way more familiar with the Geneva Convention and the rules of war than he is the tools of war, which I guess kind of makes sense. But it sounds to me like he spent a lot more time behind a desk in a war zone than he did in a war zone. I don't know that to be fact. But it seems like you might know a little bit about, especially when you're special operations, special forces, that you're going to know a little more than your general army infantry dude. I think you would know a little more about the weapon systems. I mean, you're one step away from like the special ops guys who you probably had a lot of interaction with, who are requesting things like 300 blackout or 30 caliber bullets or 45 caliber pistols or any number of like specialized things for the specialized missions that they were using. Seems like you would have looked over and go, damn, what's that 30 caliber bullet that Jimbo over there. What's that? What's 300 blackout? Why is that barrel only like 11 inches long or 10 inches long? That rifle looks really short. I don't know. Fuck Tony Aguilar. God damn, I've convinced myself. I can convince myself of a lot of things if I talk about them long enough. Where's my damn mouse? Great. Well, I don't know if this goddamn space is working or not. I don't know if anybody can even hear me in that damn space. Hopefully you guys can. If you can hear me in the space, give me a thumbs up. Processing. Well, I got a laughy face by Merc. I didn't get a damn thumbs up. But anyway, if I'm right about this, and Israel has taken the lessons from Rhodesia and its non-existence to this day and how it whittled away, then they're goddamn smart in destabilizing their neighbors so they can't actually organize against them, and there's no stable regime within. Because if you look at Syria, the way that, let me put the map back up here if you're viewing live. If you're not viewing live, if you're unfamiliar with where Rhodesia was, it's current day Zimbabwe. So if we say that Rhodesia is Israel, and we say that Mozambique is Syria, okay, it would make sense to destabilize Syria and have it a war zone that could not mobilize against you and launch attacks against you when you share a border with them. Destabilizing a Lebanon and keeping them on their toes makes sense as well. If no one has like a stable, organized government, and this allegedly was the theory, this has been alleged that this was what Benjamin Netanyahu was doing with Hamas inside of Gaza, is that if you have these rival gangs, if you will, rival factions, then they can't unite against you. So you keep them fighting, which is a decent strategy. It's a distraction strategy. It's also kind of a divide and conquer. So if you're Israel and you're taking the lessons of Rhodesia, get your neighbor to fight and be destabilized because they're too busy infighting to ever look at you and fight you. Assad was pretty well equipped there in Syria. I don't know if he was planning anything, and that's why we, were kind of why we launched the war. Covert war, but why we launched the war, I don't know. Maybe it's just a longer strategy by smarter people in the country of Israel, in the government of Israel to do that. I don't know. But it is a great strategy. If Syria, Jordan basically at this point is a country in name only. A Chino, a Chino, whatever. There's nothing going to happen there. Destabilizing all of your neighbors keeps them from ever coming at you. Egypt, pretty destabilized. I mean, it's a functioning government. It's gone through some troubles. I don't know what the hell's going on in Egypt, but they basically only exist because we pay for them. So they're there's a leash on them. It's a brilliant fucking strategy. And it's what you have to do if you want to exist. As I pointed out earlier, and I have in past episodes, there is no right to exist as a country. Like, you can't be invaded and go, I have the right to exist. Great. Yeah, we're coming in anyway. You're being invaded. Did Kuwait do that to the Iraqis in 1989? Like, oh, we have the right to exist. Yeah, get out of the way of the tank. Could you just in the middle of China just pop up a country of, you could take a town that has 30,000 people, and those town goes, well, we're in the new town of fucking Waterloo. And we have the right to exist. Pretty sure the Chinese don't see it that way. Right, Hong Kong? Yeah. If you're Taiwan, thank God takes an amphibious assault to get to you. That'll be a tough one, China. But despite what your opinions of Israel may or may not be, you got to tip the cap. It's a brilliant strategy. Will the world, will the United States, will the European Union, Will their allies that are currently there, will they have the stomach? Will they have the political will, the political power to watch what happens next when the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians happens in Gaza and the West Bank? That is the biggest question, remain to be seen, because it's happening. By bullet or by boat, apparently they're getting them out of there. And they're making no bones about it. They're making zero excuses. Will they have the political will within inside Israel to do it? That's the question, too. Will there be a distraction drill? Will there be something that happens in the United States or Europe proper? Maybe the UK, some sort of terrorist attack that distracts us from what's happening there, that diverts our attention. It's possible. It's not beyond the pale. I mean, at this point, your political will, your political currency is running out. I know there are European countries that are starting to question, European governments that are starting to question, and probably European countries as a whole, European people starting to question what's happening in Gaza, and probably rightfully so. Do they have the political power within their own borders, the Netanyahu government, to continue with what's coming? Again, you don't have to like it, but you're going to have to accept it, because it's coming. It's happened throughout history. It would have been nice if Israel could have taken like our lead lesson on the American Indians and the tribes. That wasn't exactly an easy process. It wasn't exactly a bloodless process. But they're full citizens within the United States. They have sovereignty. They can go wherever the hell they want. No questions asked. Might look a little different. It is what it is. Full citizens, votes, guns, speech, whole bit. Every bit of it. Except you can't name a team the Redskins. Can't do that. Cool as that sounds, cool as it looked. Badass logo. Couldn't do it. Can't even name the Indians. Because that's racist. Maybe we should name them the Palestinians. That'd be funny. Running out of steam. Insulted a number of people. Probably pissed off more people. Probably going to get called many a name. Probably going to say that I'm some sort of Zionist. Some sort of pro-Israel murderer or something. I don't know. Just is what it is. As I've said numerous times, you don't have to like it, but it's going to happen. It's happened thousands of times throughout history. It's going to happen once more. It's going to happen in a place that you don't give a shit about, by the way. The political will, is it there? Might be there in Israel because it's kind of more of a direct threat. There's no political will here, as far as I can tell, for war with Iran, even though a number of people that I know that were like, well, we got to do it. It's like, do we? Have you looked around at any major city? Tell me which major city is thriving right now. Any major city, thriving. Just awesome. Very little to no homeless. Jobs are, middle class is booming. There's jobs, there's wealth, there's prosperity. No crime. Which major city's doing great? Infrastructure's there. It's awesome. All kinds of new awesome looking buildings. Maybe somewhere in Florida. I'm sure there's an example or two. But by and large, especially like the legacy cities in the United States, are all shit holes. Every single one of them seems to be a shithole. Even Tulsa, where I was born. 30 minutes down the road. Turning into a shithole. There's homeless everywhere. Everywhere. We've revitalized the downtown, spent hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in renovating old places, restaurants, shopping, the baseball stadiums, parks, infrastructure, redoing different things, rebuilding old historic hotels, condos, all of the things. It's all there, all with the scenery of a guy pushing a shopping cart full of cans and shit with a dog in tow, yelling at a fucking light post who owes him money, apparently. That's where we're at with major cities. But yeah, I guess Iran's the problem. Iran's the problem. We should go over there and ruin their country with some bombs, because I don't know. Iran's a problem. Those damned Iranians. Well, congratulations, everyone who fell hook, line, and sinker for the Iran nonsense. They're going to get a bomb now. Why wouldn't they? Because apparently we don't negotiate in good faith, and you just get blown up anyway. So you might as well have an insurance policy that's called a nuclear fucking bomb. Fantastic. That's the end of the live stream. We'll see how it works in the space. Good night.